Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we are making Carnage. So the first thing we're going to do is click on the default cube, hit Ctrl 2 to apply a subdivision surface modifier, and then go into your modifiers tab, hover over it and hit Ctrl A to apply it. Go into front view mode with number 1 on the number pad, go into edit mode, and then go into face select mode and select these faces right here. Make sure you hold shift so that you can select them all. And then hit number 3 on the number pad and go into side view mode. And then hit E to extrude and then bring those faces back. And then leave edit mode and go back into object mode. Hit Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface modifier. Go to your modifiers tab and then hit Ctrl A to apply. And then go into sculpt mode. Hit 1 on the number pad to go into front view mode. And make sure mirror on the X axis is selected. And we're going to take the grab brush tool, hit F to increase your scale, and grab the top of his head and squish it down. And then turn your model, and then go down to snake hook. Make your brush size smaller by hitting F and scaling it down. Grab the bottom of his jaw and pull it forward. And then go back into front view mode with number 1 on the number pad. Select the grab brush and then we're going to pinch his head. Alright, so we're pretty much finished with the head. We're going to leave sculpt mode and go back into object mode. And then we're going to add one more subdivision surface modifier by hitting Ctrl 2 and then right click and shade smooth on it. But this one, don't apply it. Then we're going to move on to the body. So go back into front view mode with number 1 on the number pad. By hitting Shift A, go to Mesh and add a new cube. Hit G to grab the cube and Z to constrain it to the Z axis and bring it down. Then hit Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface modifier. Go into the modifiers tab and hit Ctrl A to apply it. Then go into edit mode and make sure you're on face select mode and then toggle on X-ray. Select the left half of the sphere, hit X and delete faces. Leave X-ray mode, add a new modifier. You're going to add a mirror modifier and make sure clipping is turned on. Then we're going to add another subdivision surface modifier, increase your levels view to 2, and then turn on cage. Then we're going to hit A to select everything and then S to scale it on the X axis by hitting X. Then go into side view mode with number pad 3, and then we're going to scale it on the Y axis by hitting S and then Y. I'm going to leave edit mode and go into object mode. Hit G to grab and then Z to constrain it to the Z axis and bring it up. Then go into side view mode with number pad 3. Grab the head, hit R to rotate it, and then G to grab and move it forward. Click back onto the body and then go into edit mode. Select these 4 faces, hit X and then delete faces. And then for the next part, you're going to need an add-on. So go to Edit Preferences. And then go to Add-on. And you're going to install an add-on called Loop Tools. So make sure that's checked. Once that's checked, go back onto your model. Make sure Edge Select mode is on. You can go into Edge Select mode by hitting this button up here or hitting 2 on the keyboard. Select one of the edges on the circle. And with holding Alt, you can select that entire loop. Right-click, go up to Loop Tools and hit Circle. Then hit 1 on the number pad to go into front view mode. And then we're going to rotate it by hitting R. And then E to extrude. And S to scale it down a little bit. And then E to extrude again. And then S to scale it down. And then one more time, E to extrude. S to scale it down. And then go into vertex select mode. You can either hit this button right here or hit 1 on the number pad. Hit right click, go to merge vertices at center. If the arms look a little bit off, we can change that later. And then go back into face select mode by hitting 3 on the... Select these 4 faces here, hit X to delete and delete those faces. Then hit 2 to go to edge select mode. Hold Alt, select that entire loop. Right click, go to Loop Tools and go to Circle. Then go into front view mode with number pad 1. I'm going to rotate a little bit before we extrude, and then hit E to extrude. and then rotate, and then E to extrude. Move the model so you can see the bottom of the feet. Hit E to extrude, but don't move it anywhere. Hit S to scale it down, and then E and S again to scale it down. And to fill those faces in, we're going to hit grid fill, so hit F3 and search for grid fill. And actually we're going to do the same thing to his arm, so go back into vertex select mode, select that vertex, hit X and delete it, and then hit 2 to select the loop on his arm, and then we're going to hit F3 and fill that in with the grid. Then we're going to tab out of edit mode, go back into object mode, and we're going to scale the body down. What we want is, we want the body as tall as his head, so just try to match the head height with the body height. So it just needs to be scaled down a little bit. You can hit S to scale it down and Z to scale it only on the Z axis. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and then G to grab it and lift it up. Then you can right click and shade smooth. Next we're going to pose his arms, so make sure you apply the mirror modifier by hitting Ctrl A to apply. You could leave the subdivision surface modifier on. Tab back into edit mode. Then we're only going to select his left arm over here, so make sure you go into face select mode, select these 4 faces here, and make sure only his left side is selected. You don't want anything selected on the right yet. Hit Ctrl and plus, and that'll increase your selection. Then we're going to hit Ctrl 3 so we can see the side view of his arm, and we're just going to rotate it back. So R to rotate, and we're going to rotate on the Z axis backwards. And then you can grab it and move it back a little bit too. So we're going to do the same thing to his other arm. Make sure you're in face select mode, select these 4 faces, hit Ctrl and plus. And we're going to go into side view mode with number pad 3. And we're just going to rotate on the Z axis, and G to move it forward a bit. Then we're going to rotate the model and rotate a little bit more and bring it down. Now we're going to do the same thing with his feet. So select the bottom 4 faces, hit Ctrl and plus. Go into side view mode with Ctrl and number pad 3. And we're going to rotate it on the Z axis a little bit. And then we're going to hit G to grab and bring it back. And do the same thing with the other foot. Select the 4 faces, hit Ctrl and plus. And if you need to go back, you can hit Ctrl and negative. Go into side view mode with number pad 3, rotate it on the Z axis, and move it forward. Next, we're going to add some new geometry to his arm so that we can start making his hands. So go over to the face on his arm, hit Ctrl R to add a loop cut. Make sure it's a loop cut that goes around his entire chest, and then bring it down towards the middle of his hand. So it looks like that. Then we're going to do the same thing for the face underneath. Hit Ctrl R, go around his chest, and that one will look like that. Then go into face select mode with select these 2 faces here, hit X and delete faces. And then go into edge select mode, or hit 2 to go into edge select mode and select that loop. Then we're going to hit G to grab and bring it back. And then hit E to extrude, and then S to scale it down. Then go into vertex select mode, right click, and merge vertices at center. Then go into face select mode, select these faces right here. Hit X to delete faces. Go into edge select mode, select that loop, and then G to grab. We're going to grab it and move it forward. Then I'm going to rotate it a little bit on the Z axis, scale it down, hit E to extrude, and then scale it down. Hit 1 to go into vertex select mode, right click and merge vertices at center. I'm going to move this vertex back or forward a little bit. Hit Ctrl and plus to increase selection. Hit G to grab, and I'm going to move it forward just a bit. Next, we're going to add a base for him to stand on, so hit Shift A, go to Mesh, and we're going to add a cylinder. Hit G to grab and Z to constrain it to the Z axis, and we're going to hit S to scale and scale it on the Z axis. Then G to grab it again and pull that up. Hit Ctrl 2, we'll add a subdivision surface modifier. Tab into edit mode, and then we're going to add some loop cuts, so hit Ctrl R, add a loop cut up, and then a loop cut at the bottom. Then go into face select mode. Select that top face, hit I to inset. We're going to inset it twice. And do the same thing to the bottom. Select that bottom, hit I to inset. Then we're going to leave edit mode, go into object mode, right click and shade smooth. Next we're going to add his tongue, so hit Shift A, Mesh, we're going to add a cube. Hit Ctrl 3 to add a subdivision surface modifier. Hit number pad 3 to go into side view mode. And we're going to hit G to grab, and grab that and move forward and scale it down. And then G to grab and move it back into his mouth. Hit number pad 1 to go into front view mode. Then go into the modifiers tab and hit Ctrl A to apply the modifier. Instead of edit mode, we're going to go into sculpt mode this time. And we're going to click on remesh, and we're going to remesh it to 0.05 and hit remesh. Make sure snake hook tool is selected. Then we're going to turn the model to the side and grab the sphere and pull it out. Now if you need to remesh to get rid of all these artifacts, go up to remesh and hit remesh. And then you can pull it out even more. Alright, once you're happy with the way the tongue looks, we're going to remesh it one more time. Then go over to the smooth brush and just smooth everything out. Then we're going to leave sculpt mode and go back into object mode. And I'm going to bring the tongue back just a little bit and move it back into his head. Actually, I'm going to go back into sculpt mode and I'm going to make his tongue a little bit flatter. So I'm going to use the scrape tool and I'm just going to scrape the top of it to make it look more like a tongue. Alright, now I'm going to leave sculpt mode and go back into object mode. And we're going to start adding the teeth. So go back into front view mode with number pad 1, Shift A, we're going to add a cube. I'm going to hit G and just move it off to the side so we can work on it. Scale it down a bit. Then I'm going to tab into edit mode and make sure vertex select mode is on. And we're going to select these 4 bottom vertices. Go back into front view mode with number pad 1. Hit G to grab them, and we're going to constrain it to the Z axis and pull it down. Then we're going to scale them all down, hit S, and make it into a sharp point. Go ahead and leave edit mode, go into object mode. Hit Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface modifier, and now you have a tooth. Now we're going to curve the tooth by going back into edit mode, and we're going to add a loop cut right in the middle of it. So hit Ctrl R, add a loop cut, bring it up. Go into side view mode with number pad 3, and with that loop cut still selected, hit G and we're going to move it forward a bit. And that'll give the tooth a curve. And then leave edit mode, go back into object mode, right click and shade smooth. Now if the edges of your mesh look a little lumpy, you can increase your levels view. Make sure you turn up your render as well. And then we're going to position the teeth onto the head. So go into front view mode, number 1 on the number pad. G to grab, bring it over. Then go into top view mode with number 7. G to grab and move it forward. Front view mode with number 1. Then I'm going to scale it down by hitting S. And then hit Control number pad 3, and that'll bring us into side view mode. And I'm going to hit G and bring it back. And you can rotate it too if you like. And keep rotating your model. Make sure that you put the teeth in the correct spot. Then we're going to hit Alt D, and that'll duplicate the tooth. So the reason we're choosing Alt D instead of Shift D is Alt D is going to duplicate the tooth, but it's going to create a linked duplicate. So whatever you do to one of them, it'll do it to all of them. Instead of the regular Shift D, where if you duplicate that way, that one won't be linked to the previous object. So for the teeth, you want to make sure you're using Alt D to duplicate. So go ahead and hit Alt D and just keep placing teeth around the mouth. If the teeth are going into the tongue, you can scale it down or rotate it so it's out of the way. And you can go ahead and get crazy with this one. Carnage's teeth are pretty crazy in his mouth, so go ahead and get artistic with it. Alright, then you're going to want to do the same thing to the bottom teeth. So hit Alt D and then rotate it. And keep placing the teeth around in the skull. Alright, next we're going to start working on the eye. We're going to hit Shift A, go to Mesh, add a new cube. And then hit Control 3 to add a subdivision surface modifier. Go to your modifiers tab, hit Control A to apply it. Then go into side view mode by hitting number pad 3. Grab the sphere and bring it forward. Hit S to scale it down. And then G to pull it back and move it onto the head. Go into front view mode with number pad 1. Hit G to grab again and then move it to the side. And I'm actually going to increase my scale a little bit. Then we're going to go into sculpt mode. And we're going to go to remesh and change your voxel size to 0.05 and click remesh. Then go to the grab brush tool and I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller by hitting F. And I'm going to grab the sphere and pull it back onto the head. And you want to make sure when you're pulling it back that you pull it back onto the head. Next, I'm going to flatten it out. And if it goes underneath the mesh, you can always pull it back up. And I want my eye to come to a point, so I'm going to grab it and make it a little bit sharper. And make sure you're moving around your model so that you can make the eye flat and even on all sides. Alright, next we're going to mirror the eye so we can see what it really looks like. So go to your modifiers tab, click on mirror, and then click on your eyedropper tool and select the head, and that'll just mirror it over. Alright, that looks decent. So I'm going to remesh one more time. And then go down to snake hook and we're going to start making swirls on the eyes. So I'm going to decrease my brush size by hitting F. And what I'm going to do is just grab a part and bring it out and try to make swirls. And I'm going to do the same thing all around his eye. And you want to go around the eye and make sure that's pretty even to the head. You don't want any spots sticking out that are really far. So I'm pretty happy with the way the eye looks. So I'm going to go up to remesh and I'm going to remesh this to a much larger resolution. So I'm going to hit 0.01 voxel size and remesh. And that's only because we're going to add a vertex paint to this. And for that to work, we need a lot of vertices. Then we're going to go down to smooth and smooth the eye. We're going to start adding the veins. So what I'm going to do is make sure everything is in its own collection. We're going to collapse that collection, add a new one and call it veins. And for this, you're going to need a new add-on. This one's going to be called IvyGen. So make sure you have IvyGen enabled. And once you do, go ahead and exit. Make sure you leave sculpt mode and go back into object mode. Hit N on your keyboard to go into the side panel. And then go down to create. And then make sure IvyGen is opened. And I'm going to change a couple settings before we get started. So I'm going to change my max Ivy length to 3. And then change the float length to 0.1. Change my adhesion weight to 0.5. My branching probability to 0.03. And then make sure grow leaves is unchecked. So before we do anything to the model, we're going to start with the base. So click on the base, hit Control A and apply all transforms. And then hit Control A and apply scale. Then in order for this to work, we have to hit Shift and then right click and move our origin around the spot where we want it to start. And then we'll click on the object, make sure the base is selected, and then hit Add New Ivy. And that'll add Ivy to the base. And then I'm going to do it again to the back by hitting Shift, right click, move my origin point, and then make sure the base is selected again, and then add New Ivy. And then we're going to move on to the body. Alright, so we're going to add the origin point around here, and then make sure the body's selected, add New Ivy. And then we're going to go around the model and keep doing this method. Sometimes it won't work, so you have to move your origin point around. Then we're going to add a origin point right here on the tip of his knife, and then add New Ivy again, and then do it again to the back. And his front looks a little bare, so I'm going to add one right here too. Alright, then we're going to move on to the head. Alright, hit Control A on the head and apply scale, and then apply all transforms. This will make the vines grow straight up his head. And then I like to place the origin point in his mouth so that the ivy can come out of his mouth as well. Alright, so now that he's all covered in the ivy looking veins, we can start adding all the materials. So the first thing we're going to do is work on the materials for the eyes. But before we do that, we're going to need some lighting. So go down to your world properties. We're going to change the color and go to environment texture, and then open the environment texture that'll be in the description. To go into materials preview, hit Z on the keyboard and go down to materials preview. So the eyes are going to be special. We're actually going to paint around it. So I want you to open a new window right here. Go into shader editor, hit N on the keyboard. Keep this open, and then we'll go down to materials. Hit on new material, and we're going to call this one eyes. And then we're going to go into object data properties, go down to color attributes, and we're going to add a new color attribute, and we're going to call this one eye. Hit OK. Go over into your shader editor, hit Shift A, we're going to add a color attribute. Make sure color is linked to base color, and then you're going to choose your eye, and that'll make your eye all black. And we don't need this window anymore, so go ahead and close it. Now we can start painting on the eye. So we're going to go up to object mode and go down to vertex paint. We're going to make the eye white again, so go into your active tools menu, make sure white is selected, and click on color palette. We're going to make a new color palette and just call it 1. And then add that color to your palette so you always have white. And then we're going to hit Shift K, and that'll fill the entire eye with white. And then we're going to go down to black and then add that one to your color palette as well. And then hit F on the keyboard to make your brush smaller. And then you're going to draw on your eye around the entire eye to do an outline. It's okay if your outline looks a little choppy, we can go back and edit it. So now that your eye is outlined, we're going to start adding color to the body. So we're going to leave vertex paint and go back into object mode. Now that all the veins are in their own collection, we can hit this little eye tool to make sure they're all hidden for now. And then we'll click the head and go down to materials property and add a new material. And we'll call this body and head. And we're going to change the base color, go into hex, and we're going to change this to 94008. And then we're going to add that to the body as well. And then for the tongue, we want it a little bit more shiny, so we're going to add a new material. Call that one tongue. And for the base color, we're going to do the same color, 94008. But then we're going to change the roughness down to 0.25. So I can see a little bit of pixelation on the tongue, so I'm going to right click and shade smooth. Then we're going to make the teeth black, so click on one of them, hit new material, and we're going to rename it to teeth. Change your base color to black. Now you see, since I changed one, it's going to change all of them. That's because we use Alt D to duplicate instead of Shift D. So we're going to move it all the way down, make it black. And then we're going to change the roughness to 0.9. And then we're going to change the base color. And we're going to make it gray. We're going to turn your roughness up to 0.9. Then we're going to click on the eye to make the veins visible again. We're going to click on the first ivy, and we're going to add the same material as the teeth. And then we're going to select all of them, making sure that the first one that you selected is first, and then hit Shift. Make sure they're all selected. Hit Control L, and we're going to link materials. And that'll make all the veins black. Now we're going to go back into the eyes and make sure our outline is perfect. So click on the eye and then go back into vertex paint mode. And then go to your active tools. And I'm going to click on black on our palette and just work around it, just to make it a little bit more even. Then you can click on white if you have any mistakes and fix them. Then I'm going to add a quick background. I'm going to hit Mesh, add Plane, hit S to scale it up, and G to move it down. Then I'm going to tab into Edit Mode, make sure Edge Select is on, and grab that back edge. Hit E to extrude and Z to constrain it to the Z axis. And then grab that edge again, hit Control B to bevel. And then use your middle mouse wheel to scroll up and increase your bevel. And I'm going to go back into object mode, right click and shade smooth. And I'm going to add a new material for that one, call it background. And I'm going to make it gray and increase the roughness. So now we're pretty much done. You just have to render and you have your finished carnage.